Good morning, everyone. Pam Jacobson here, your host of Three Things You Need to Know. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. I'm here every Wednesday at 9 a.m. And I do appreciate all of your input and your feedback. If there's things that you want to know more about, I've put all of my contact information here in the chat area. If you're watching this back as a video later, again, I really appreciate your feedback. For those of you who don't know me, I am board certified in functional medicine, master's trained in Chinese medicine. I have a long history in health and wellness care and work with clients all over the country, helping them to restore normal body function and regain the vitality and quality of life that they deserve. I have a long history in conventional medicine, so I'm able to work closely with your healthcare team and able to order testing and interpret testing. Anything I talk about on any of my shows, I am able to help you get access to, whether it's testing or supplementation or any type of treatment. So again, my contact information is there. And if you're here watching live today, please ping me and let me know. Hi, Trevor. Good morning. Let me know that you're watching. And I would really, again, as I said, appreciate the feedback. So today we've got three, I think, really exciting topics to talk about. The first of which is the magic mineral. So before I tell you what the magic mineral is, I wanted to first start by saying a little bit about what minerals are, because I do think that this can be somewhat of a confusing subject. Especially if you're not somebody who's steeped themselves in all of the training of medicine as I have over the years. So minerals are, the thing to know about them is they're not really produced inside your body like a number of the nutrients are that I've been discussing in the last several weeks. These are things that you have to get from your diet, which means that they have to come from our sometimes less than stellar food supply. A lot of the soils, depending on the type of farming that's done, are stripped and maybe not as abundant in minerals as they once were. And so it is becoming increasingly more difficult for us to get the level of nutrients from our food supply that our body needs. And our body needs very specific amounts of minerals in order to function properly. Now, there's two kind of broad categories of minerals, if you will, macro and micro. The macro minerals are those that your body needs more of, things like calcium, magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, sodium. These are all things that you've likely heard of and perhaps are even using on a regular basis. Micro minerals, on the other hand, are needed in only trace amounts. And it's very important. If you overconsume any of the micro minerals, you can create some real significant imbalances. These would be things like iodine, copper, manganese, molybdenum, selenium. So there's quite a list of trace minerals, if you will, that are just as important as your macro minerals. But today I'm going to talk about one in particular, the magic mineral, which is magnesium. The reason why I called it the magic mineral is because it is one of those things that is involved in absolute every function of the human body, to the point where it's almost a little bit scary to think that many of us, in fact, most of us, are probably really deficient in magnesium, yet it is touching and intimately involved in every single process that goes on for us. So Trevor has a question: what minerals do I see are typically sufficient in the general populations, and what do I see as problematic or deficient? Well, we'll talk about that. Certainly, magnesium is one of those that I consistently see as deficient in the general population. I think some of the bigger issues I see really with minerals and nutrients in general is the ability for us to absorb them and use them properly, which comes down to oftentimes gut health. And I've talked about this in some of my previous discussions, but your gut health is so critical to your ability to utilize the nutrients and minerals and things that you're getting from the foods that you're eating or the supplements that you're taking. So I would say that many of us are deficient in many nutrients, especially if I run a micronutrient study, for instance. I will find deficiencies often and very commonly, and magnesium is definitely one of those, which is why I wanted to talk about it today, because it's so very important for so many functions in the body. It's considered a cofactor, which means it's a helper. It is it binds to and promotes over 300 enzymes in the human body. And these enzymes have work to do in just about every body system, from your cardiovascular, heart function, brain function, your entire musculoskeletal system. About 50% of your magnesium is stored in the bones. So it's really critical for the structure of your body, not to mention the function of all of its organ systems. It's also one of the primary substances that's involved in the production of ATP, which is the body's primary energy source. So really, without magnesium, it is the life. It's part of the life-sustaining factor of all cells in the human body. So suffice it to say, without magnesium, you're going to have a lot of problems, and probably not a great aging or longevity. So some of the functions aside from bone health, as I mentioned, are heart function, the ability for the heart rhythm to be smooth, the blood vessels to be pliable and not too stiff, the ability for cognitive function, for brain function. It's very integral also in, as I said before, the musculoskeletal system, but not just the bones, actually. The muscles and the tendons and the entire function of that musculoskeletal system is very dependent on magnesium. The sleep, there's so many: wound healing, immune system, hormone production, so many different areas that magnesium is involved in. So hopefully I've made it pretty clear that you got to have it. And some of the symptoms of a deficiency of magnesium, you might be experiencing things like fatigue, weakness, pain, muscle spasm, inability to recover, especially after physical activity, cognitive decline. Sometimes it's really just a problem with magnesium deficiency. Constipation can also be an indicator that you're deficient in magnesium, insomnia, tingling, and neuropathies. So those are some of the signs that you might be deficient. Some of the causes of deficiency, right? What are some of the reasons that a person might be deficient in magnesium? That would be diarrhea and vomiting. So when somebody's been ill, dehydration, any situation that causes dehydration, overconsumption of caffeine, overconsumption of alcohol, smoking, a poor lifestyle in general, just poor diet where you're not actually consuming enough magnesium. I think for me, one of the biggest reasons is poor gut health. And I see that so much in my practice. Patients who overuse fiber, right? Because it's a binding, it binds the minerals. Phosphates that are in soda. So you have to be careful. Phosphate, you have to really look at your labels, but sodas have phosphates, your bubbly waters can have phosphates. So you have to be careful there. Over-exercise and heavy sweating can cause magnesium deficiencies. There are different forms of magnesium. You may have heard of this, and some are more absorbable than others. So citrate, glycinate, gluconate, lactate are probably the top absorbable. I use a product from Orthomolecular called Reacted Magnesium, and I love it in the powder form. I have my clients use it at bedtime in water to help with relaxing the musculoskeletal system. It is also an intensely relaxing mineral for the nervous system. So it can calm the nerves, calm the musculoskeletal system, help work on that bowel function overnight. I just find magnesium to be one of the most amazing ways to help a person kind of globally feel better, and it helps deepen the sleep as well. I have a comment. I've used magnesium for years with athletes and had incredible benefits, zero cramping, but many underestimate the holistic benefits across all systems. Would you consider this a foundation top 5? Without question. This is definitely, when I talk to my clients about the baseline supplementation, Magnesium is always in that discussion. And what you'll find, it's so important that if you've got a bunch of supplements sitting on your counter at home and you go pull those out and look at the label on the back, I bet you about 100% of those will have some magnesium in them, whether it's to aid in absorption of the other things that are in that product, or if it is, mainly about the magnesium itself. Again, it's so critically important. And for those of you who are athletes, or like me, somebody who's just very um, uh, very I don't devoted, I guess, or consistent with my physical exercise, I find magnesium critical for my recovery. So again, it is the magic mineral. So how much do you need? It varies by individual, truly, depending on your gut health and what your diet looks like. But most of us are going to be safe within 400 to 800 milligrams a day. One way that you can, your body will flush out the magnesium through loose stool or diarrhea. So if you get that, you know that your dose is too high. So I'll usually have my patients start at a lower level, maybe the 400 milligrams, and gradually dose up until they get a little bit of a soft stool. And then we know that that's about the level of magnesium that their body requires. Some can take much more than 800 milligrams. So I think you have to, kind of adjust that yourself. Certainly I'm available to help you figure that out. Some things you do need to know, you do want to be careful. There are certain medications that you need to, really inform your physician if you're taking a calcium channel blocker or diuretic, or if you have kidney disease, you want to make sure that your physician's aware. But generally, magnesium is something safe to use. And really, honestly, the chances that you're deficient are pretty high, since that's pretty common in our culture. So there you have it, guys. Magnesium, the magic mineral. So I thought that talking about magnesium and it's 50% of it being stored in the bones and how important it is for bone health, that was a great segue into talking about your bone health today. So, and this is a topic that has come up for me several times in this last few weeks. I've got all of a sudden a number of clients that have come to me seeking help for osteoporosis or osteopenia. They're concerned about their bone health. Maybe they just recently had a DEXA scan, and all of a sudden they, have this diagnosis of osteopenia, which means, it's kind of the early stage of osteoporosis where we're seeing the bone starting to degrade. Osteoporosis is full-blown, really basically porous bone that has now become so brittle that the risk of fracture is very high. Here's the issue, I think, with bone health. It's really not symptomatic. You don't get pain or weakness or other types of symptoms when your bones are basically deteriorating. It's not really until you have your first fracture that you're even aware of it. So it can be one of those insidious things that does take decades to develop. And there's so much that you can be doing to help protect bone, build bone, reverse the bone degradation that's already occurred. And for you gentlemen watching, this is not just a problem in women. Yes, it is more common in women. 1 in 3 women over the age of 55 in our culture will have, some form of bone degradation, such as osteopenia or osteoporosis. But one of my clients right now is a male, and he was diagnosed in his 30s with osteopenia and now has full-blown osteoporosis. So what are the reasons why, we would see a problem with bone health? Well, hormone balance, which is the reason why we see this as predominantly an issue for women over 55. And estrogen and progesterone, but also testosterone and the adrenal hormone DHEA are very much a part of our bone health. And those hormones decline for both males and females. With females, they decline more based on aging, but for males, they can decline at any point in a male's life, especially when there's significant amounts of stress, whether that's mental, emotional stress, or physical stress. My patient happens to be in law enforcement, and so that's a highly physically and mentally, emotionally stressful position. So hormone balance is really critical both for males and females. Diet And the micro and macronutrients like magnesium that we talked about this morning, if you are not getting enough of those nutrients in your dietary consumption, it's going to be problematic for bone, not only bone protection, but bone regrowth, right? When we get damage to the bone. Smoking, alcohol, right? There's a theme here, right? Smoking, alcohol, overconsumption of caffeine are all hugely problematic for bone health. Lack of exercise, in this case for bone health, lack of exercise is often a reason, especially weight bearing exercises like walking or doing things with weight. So, in the area of exercise, it's very important to not just be looking at exercise as cardiovascular, but looking at how you can be adding weight bearing type of exercise. Chronic stress, as I said before, one of the important bone building hormones is DHEA, which is produced in the adrenal glands where all of your stress hormones are produced. So if you are overly stressed and not doing anything on a daily basis to manage your stress response, you are going to be imbalancing the hormone balance in the body when it comes to something important like DHEA. Your adrenals are also the place that, especially for both males and females, but especially females, where your estrogen and progesterone and testosterone are produced once the ovaries decline production. Some of the other reasons I already mentioned, poor gut health is probably one of the biggest reasons for osteoporosis, again, because we're not able to absorb the nutrients from our food. And then there are some genetics involved, right? So if you have a predisposition already for a bone issue, and then you're having any of these other factors on top of that, what we would call epigenetics, then you are much more likely to develop a bone health problem. So what can you do? Can you be tested? You can. There is an imaging study called a DEXA scan, but here's the deal. It's an expensive test, and most insurance companies will not approve it unless you are a female over a certain age and you've got a family history of bone health issues, or you've had a fracture. So it is a bit of a challenging. You'll find if you just waltz into your doctor's office today and say, "Hey, I'd like a baseline study for bone health," sort of like we do for colonoscopy at 50, you're going to find that you're not likely to easily get that test ordered. So what I would say is then it's even more important that you take the lead on protecting bone. If you do have a family history, absolutely, I would seek a bone density scan. But for those of you who have no family history, I would say, now is the time to really be looking at the things that you're doing to promote good bone health. And so what can you do? Well, we need to balance the hormones, which means we test for that. We look at what your current hormonal levels are, and we discuss how we can balance that, whether it's through a natural approach, hormone replacement therapy, bioidentical hormone. There's lots of ways that one can go down the path. It just very much depends on the individual. But hormone balance is very, very important. So I would say hormone balance, gut health, right? I can't say that enough, guys. I talked about it in the past. I'm going to keep talking about it because here's the issue with gut health. Oftentimes you're not aware. This is not just someone who's having true symptoms of indigestion or bloating. You can have problems with absorption and not necessarily have a symptom that you can put your finger on. So I think it is important, at least annually, to really look at the function of the gut, particularly if you've been sick or been on antibiotics or have a very stressful life or a less than stellar diet. Your gut health is going to be an important factor in your bone health overall. Lifestyle is huge, right? Your proper diet, the weight-bearing exercise, getting enough sleep so the body can repair, especially for bone health. And then really managing your stress response, right? Having some kind of a daily routine. So I'm going to not spend a lot of time talking about the details of those because I am going to be starting a resilience program, which I'll talk about in a minute. And those are some of the things that we'll discuss. Now, there are supplements. And magnesium is one of them. It's like right there at the top of the list. Magnesium, vitamin D, vitamin K, of course, calcium, but not at the levels that we originally thought maybe a decade ago. We found that taking those really high doses of calcium were causing some other problems in the body. And so now, your calcium dose needs to be no more. I mean, I think 1,000 milligrams a day is considered the top end of the range. And calcium, I think, is best gotten from really well done supplementation, like reacted absorbable calcium. It's not something that you really, I think, can get abundantly or even in a healthful way from consuming a lot of milk or dairy products, as we were led to believe. But calcium's definitely on that list. Your fish oil, I've talked a lot about your omegas and the importance of very important for bone health. Your B vitamins also, right? Your whole complex of B vitamins. And vitamin C, which is a huge antioxidant, so important for not only your immune health, which I've been talking about a lot recently, but also your bone health. And then zinc. Zinc is another mineral, one that I will delve into at some point, but it's also an important mineral and very important for your bone health. So there you have it, just kind of an overview on bone health. But I felt like this is something that's been coming up a lot for me in the last couple of months with clients, and thought it was important to bring it up for all of you because, now is the time to really look at how you can build resilience going forward as far as your health goes. And nobody's going to do that for you, right? That's really going to be your job. So let's talk about resilience, right? So my third point for the last several weeks has been a COVID update. I don't really have a lot of update, right? It's the same, right? We still have cases. We still have cases growing on a daily basis. We've exceeded our ability to test people. So now the numbers look skewed and now nobody's really sure, but we know it's still an issue. It's become very political. And really probably the biggest news is the race to the vaccine, which the fact that we're racing to create a vaccine is very concerning for me. So I don't have an update for you, but what I do have is a discussion for you around how can you become resilient. So how is resilience defined? What does that word mean? Well, the actual definition is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, right? It is a measure of toughness. And whether that's mental, emotional, physical, it's really all of them. They're all connected. And if I've learned anything in the last 20 years that I've been focused in the wellness area, is that the mental, emotional energy, the mental, emotional toughness of an individual absolutely dictates and drives what happens to us in our physical body. So resilience is so important for us going forward, and so important for us to understand that it is 100% our responsibility to create resilience. And in the world of COVID, in our current health crisis, it's more important now than ever that we take that responsibility. So what I'm going to do over the next several weeks is each week I'm going to dedicate the third thing you need to know to resilience, and make a challenge to you for the one thing that I want you to really focus on for the week. And you can certainly reach out to me, during the week in between the Q&A and ask me questions, or if you need further guidance, or you just want to tell me what's going on with you. Again, all of my contact information is here in the chat area. So you can reach me at you, whether you want to call or email or reach me through the website. I'm absolutely available to you. So this week, the challenge for all of you when it comes to resilience, one of the most important things, right? I've talked about the 4 foundational pillars for health, with the most important one being sleep. So when it comes to resilience, we really have to start there. That is the only time in the 24-hour period of each day that your body is able to repair the damage that was created the other 16 hours or so that you were awake, right? So you need to have a minimum of 8 hours of sleep. Now, I know there's already those of you out there going, not me. I don't need 8 hours. I've done fine for the last 50 years on 5 hours of sleep. I can't even sleep longer than that. Well, what I have to say is you're wrong. And you're probably going to have some real health issues going forward. We know without a doubt that 8 hours is the necessary amount of time that we need to be sleeping, but not just asleep. We need to be achieving deep levels of sleep and the appropriate levels of sleep throughout the cycle of sleep. So, you really have to plan to get 8 hours because many of us, we really squeeze out every second of every day, which sometimes ekes over into our sleep time. So I'm going to challenge all of you to really work this week on figuring out how to set yourself up to get 8 hours of sleep minimum each night. And that's really, I'm going to be really curious to hear from all of you on what were your tips and tricks to do that. For me, I'll tell you, it is planning ahead. So looking at my schedule, determining every night what time I will go to bed, setting a timer to remind me about 45 minutes before it would be time, and then using that last 45 minutes to get ready to transition into sleep. Turn off my electronics, maybe do some stretching or some yoga, do my meditation, do my journaling, start to calm my mind, take my magnesium. Those are all things that help me get ready for those 8 deep hours of sleep. So I'm challenging all of you in this very first discussion around resilience that sleep is going to be the most important cornerstone, tool, pillar of the foundation for you to become resilient against COVID, against mental, emotional issues, against other physical possibilities for disease and loss of health. So this week, the challenge is sleep, 8 hours minimum, as deep as possible. Try using magnesium. I love Orthomolecular's reactive magnesium. I can help you get that. But there you have it. That's the 3 things that I felt like you needed to know today. So if there's something else that you want to know about, feel free to reach out and let me know. Give me some feedback. Otherwise, I will see you right here at 9 a.m. next Wednesday. And I am wishing all of you the best week ever. Take care.